Hello, it's 10 a.m. on Thursday, the 19th of March. You're tuned into our mid-morning newscast here on Arirang TV. Thanks for being with us on this very warm spring day here in Seoul. I'm Mark Broome. Let's take a look at the headlines. Looking to nip an intensifying wage tussle in the bud, South Korean businessmen with factories at the Kaesong industrial complex meet with North Korean officials as they aim to reach a solution as soon as they can. The U.S. Federal Reserve signals it could raise interest rates soon by removing the word patient from its latest policy statement, but says an April increase is unlikely. Plus, at least 19 people, including 17 foreign tourists, are killed in a terrorist attack on a museum in Tunisia. But we begin with the latest discussions to end the wrangling over wages at the inter-Korean Kaesong industrial complex. On Wednesday, a group of South Korean businessmen visited their factories there for talks with North Korean officials after Pyongyang's unilateral demand for a wage hike for its workers. For more on what was a very busy day, Hwang Sang-hee reports.
Although North Korea rejected a petition from the South Korean companies, the South Korean businessmen say Wednesday's talks in Kaesong were quite productive.
We delivered vivid stories from the company's perspective, at least 10 times more than what was written on a one-page petition.
The rare day trip comes after North Korea demanded a unilateral wage hike of around 5% and a revision of regulations last month. South Korea says the issue must be settled through inter-Korean dialogue.
The government thinks it's appropriate for North Korea to come to talks as soon as possible to resolve issues regarding the management and improvement of the Kaesong complex through government-level talks.
With North Korea refusing the offer, 14 South Korean businessmen met with Park Soo, the North Korean official who oversees the management of the business park, to urge Pyongyang to engage in talks.
We asked North Korea to consider the fact that many companies have nightmares about the suspension in 2013, and that it should engage in government-level talks swiftly.
The businessmen described Wednesday's talks as amicable, adding they will hold similar meetings in the future. The joint business park, where some 53,000 North Koreans work at 125 South Korean factories, is the last remaining link of inter-Korean economic cooperation. The South Korean government, companies, and experts all say that another shutdown of the business park will not be in North Korea's interest. However, many are keeping an eye on a planned anti-Pyongyang leaflet launch next week and whether it will influence business operations at the Kaesong industrial complex. Hwang Sang-hee, ARIRANG News, Paju.
Now, high-level security officials from South Korea and the United States will likely meet in Washington next month to discuss the controversial issue of the possible deployment of an advanced American missile defense system known as THAAD to the Korean Peninsula. Our Kim Hyun-bin reports.
The U.S. missile defense system known as THAAD is built to intercept incoming tactical and ballistic missiles at a range of up to 200 kilometers. The system uses kinetic energy with a hit-to-kill method that in turn creates an upper-tier defense shield. It's also equipped with a sophisticated radar system that has a range of up to 2,000 kilometers. This is widely considered to be the reason why Beijing is so strongly against its potential deployment to the Korean Peninsula, as a radar will be able to cover Beijing and its surrounding areas. However, the U.S. says THAAD will enhance South Korea's ability to deal with Pyongyang's nuclear and ballistic missile threats, as well as enhancing surveillance on the communist regime. But critics see the possible deployment as Washington's attempt to reel in its Asian ally into its missile defense program. South Korea has acknowledged the battery would enhance its national security, but says it has no plans to buy the multi-billion-dollar system. Military sources say the issue will likely be addressed at the South Korea-U.S. biannual integrated defense dialogue set for mid-April in Washington. The sources add that South Korea's Deputy Minister for National Defense Policy, Ryu Jae-sung, and U.S. Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for East Asia, David Helvey, will represent the two sides at next month's meeting. South Korea has stressed on numerous occasions that it's developing its own low-tier missile defense system to protect the country against the North's missile threats. The so-called Korea Air Missile Defense and kill chain systems are set to be implemented by 2023. Kim Hyun-bin, ARIRANG News.
The presidential office says no decision has been made on whether Korea should join a China-led development bank. But according to senior staff, the administration is expected to make a decision after a short review period. On Wednesday, President Park's senior economic secretary denied reports Seoul had already agreed to join the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, adding that there have been no official discussions on the matter. The IIB is a thorny topic between China and the US. Washington views the bank as a move by Beijing to take control of economic and trade order in the region of Asia-Pacific. Now, President Park Geun-hye says people who threaten Korea's national security and identity shouldn't go unchecked. Speaking at a ceremony to appoint new police officers on Wednesday, President Park highlighted the growing importance of the police's role in maintaining security, saying there are still regional differences in Koreans' sense of safety. The president's remarks follow a recent knife attack on US Ambassador to South Korea Mark Lippert. That actually happened in broad daylight, as well as a series of deadly shooting incidents in the country. Referring to her economic innovation and structural reform drive, President Park asked the new officers to lead efforts to create a transparent and safe Korea, which she said was a requirement for reviving the domestic economy. Now, China is being coy about speculation Chinese President Xi Jinping could hold summit talks with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un in Moscow in May, when the two leaders are expected to be in town for a World War II memorial ceremony. A spokesman for China's foreign ministry said Wednesday that China has no information to share about a possible first meeting between the two leaders. The Kremlin has announced that Kim Jong-un will travel to the Russian capital for the ceremony, but Pyongyang has yet to comment. Moscow has confirmed Chinese President Xi Jinping will be there for the ceremony, which takes place on May 9th. If Kim Jong-un does head to Russia, it will mark the first time since the Korean War that a North Korean leader has not chosen China as his first overseas destination. In a widely anticipated move, the US Federal Reserve has opened the door for a rate hike in June by removing the word patient from its official policy statement. Wrapping up a two-day meeting on Wednesday, the Fed said it will raise the interest rate when there is improvement in the job market and it is, quote, reasonably confident inflation will move back to the 2% range. The statement said there will be no rate hike in April, but the Fed remained cautious, saying any move would depend on incoming data. The Fed had kept its interest rates at a record low near 0% since the global financial crisis in 2008. And back here in Korea, the debate is intensifying over the government's economic policies, despite some hopeful signs of agreement this week between the president and leaders of Korea's main rival political parties. Our Park Ji-won reports.
Ruling Saenuri Party Chairman Kim Moo-sung said Wednesday that Tuesday's trilateral talks with the president and main opposition party leader provided the rival parties with a good opportunity to see that bipartisan efforts are necessary in order to revive the economy. Kim added that both parties need to focus on pending bills that could benefit the economy. He also criticized main opposition party leader Moon Jae-in for characterizing the Park administration's economic policies as a failure during Tuesday's meeting.
I think Moon's remarks that the economy is a failure and facing a total crisis could lower economic players' confidence at a time when the nation's economy is taking a positive turn.
Moon, the chairman of the main opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy Party, apparently doesn't agree with Kim's assessment of the current economic situation. He said Wednesday that there is a huge gap in the way the economy is assessed and in devising measures to counter the crisis.
We've realized once again that there is a huge difference in perspectives. The current administration doesn't have any critical minds or lacks measures for addressing issues like normalizing the corporate tax rate, housing rental and jeonse costs, and the country's mounting household debt.
The presidential office also defended itself against Moon's remarks. It said that the economy has seen steady growth since 2012, with a growth rate of 3.3% last year, up from 2.3% in 2012. The presidential office added that it takes time for the rise in the growth rate to be felt by the general public and vowed to focus on consolidating the nation's economic recovery. Presidential office spokesman Min Kyung-wook expressed the hope that the trilateral talks will generate momentum for parliamentary cooperation in reviving the economy. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
And while we're on the topic of the Korean economy, fresh data on the labour market shows Korea did add jobs in the month of February, but the so-called real unemployment rate still hit a record high of well over 12%. Our Shin Se-min has the details.
The nation's unemployment rate hit a 5-year high in February of 4.6%, a jump from 3.8% from January and 0.1 percentage point higher than the year before. Statistics Korea said Wednesday that the high jobless figure comes on the back of seasonal factors. February is when students in Korea graduate, pushing the unemployment rate up that month. In addition, Korea's real unemployment rate in February hit a record high of 12.5% since the data collection began last May. That's 3 times as high as the official jobless rate. The real unemployment rate includes day laborers, people who are looking for a job, those who are underemployed, and those who have given up looking for a job. The figure is much broader than the official unemployment rate, which only accounts for the number of people who want jobs but have failed to get one. Despite the rise in the unemployment rate, the number of jobs created increased as well. Over 370,000 new jobs were created last month compared to the year before. The number of employed people topped some 25.2 million last month, also thanks to seasonal factors, as major local companies hold the first of 2 annual recruiting rounds during that time of the year.
Graduation season has 2 major effects on the job market. Some graduates may be hired right off the bat, while others may remain jobless. So this is the reason behind the surge in both the jobless and unemployment rates last month.
The Statistics Office also said more young people and people in their 50s found jobs last month, boosting the employment rate. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
Now, if you're a woman working for a top company here in Korea, chances are you're earning significantly less than your male counterparts. Business rating agency CEO Score's recent survey on Korea's top 290 companies out of the top 500 shows that men earn around $23,000 more a year than women. The average annual salary for men last year in these kind of companies was $64,000, while women earned $41,000. The gender wage gap was the widest in the banking sector, where the difference was a staggering $40,000. The agency said the reason is mainly because men stay in their job longer than women for various reasons, and because women don't get promoted as quickly as men. Now, South and North Koreans share the same language, but decades of division and cultural changes have made it increasingly difficult for them to understand each other's dialects. Now, this is a huge problem, especially for many North Korean defectors living in the South, but a new smartphone app is expected to help open the lines of communication. Our Ji Myung-gil has more.
These young North Korean defectors are taking on a new language. They're learning to speak like a South Korean. Surprisingly, these students, and many like them, say one of the biggest problems they face is the language barrier.
It was like people were talking to me in a foreign language, so I was too embarrassed to ask my friends what the words meant. I felt alienated.
According to a 2012 study by the National Institute of the Korean Language, North Korean defectors understand only half of the language used in South Korea. To help them overcome these communication issues, Tay Worldwide teamed up with local nonprofits to develop a smartphone app called Univoca. It's a South Korean, North Korean translator and dictionary.
We realized late in the game that young North Korean defectors would have problems reading school textbooks and solving questions due to differences in culture and dialect.
This app will give North Korean students the courage and motivation to learn, as it also offers some privacy while they study.
Teachers hope the app will help bridge communication between South and North Korean students and make resettlement a little easier for defectors in the South. 김영길, ARIRANG News.
Anger and horror has gripped Tunisia's capital after terrorists storm an iconic museum to unleash gunfire on unsuspecting tourists. We're going to get the latest on this and other global stories with Eunice Kim at the News Centre. So, Eunice, this appears to be an attack targeting tourists in that country, as 19 of the 19 people killed, most of them were foreign nationals.
Yes, that's right, Mark. 17 of the 19 fatally shot were foreign visitors, according to Tunisia's prime minister. Among them, 5 from Japan, 4 from Italy, and 2 from Colombia. In a national address, he said the strike appeared to be an attempt at crippling the Tunisian economy, which relies heavily on tourism. Dozens gathered in a candlelight vigil Wednesday night as the president of Tunisia, Beji Caid Essebsi, vowed a merciless fight against terror and that democracy will win and it will survive. Gunmen dressed in military garb struck the National Bardo Museum in broad daylight on Wednesday. It is located in central Tunis, the capital, inside a heavily guarded parliament compound. Government officials said militants took hostages for a time. They said security forces did enter the museum some 2 hours later, gunning down 2 of the attackers who have since been identified. Local reports say at least 3 others, possible accomplices, were also being pursued. Authorities say they are looking into the backgrounds of those gunmen to see whether there is any affiliation to groups like the Islamic State, Mark.
Well, I'd say that's a very high possibility of being the case, but we still don't know for sure. But Tunisia has mostly been quiet when it comes to terror attacks such as this.
Yeah, that's right. It is one of the worst attacks the country has seen in recent memory, and perhaps that's why early on Tunisia's leaders have made clear of their resolve against extremist-fueled strikes. Now, politically, Tunisia is seeing an end to a long political transition into a democracy, and it had been a rare bright spot in the so-called Arab Spring in the Middle East. Several Islamist militant groups have emerged in Tunisia, though, since that uprising, and nonetheless, the group is known for having many Islamist militant groups, particularly as the country borders Libya to the east, and authorities do estimate that some 3,000 Tunisians have joined fighters in Iraq and Syria.
Well, we're just seeing the video there. It looks absolutely terrifying. Now, let's switch over to Israel. An election win for Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who's officially clinched victory in Tuesday's election after his Likud party took the most seats in the Knesset, with almost all the votes counted.
Right. It is a result that's being received with mixed feelings. President Barack Obama, of course, longtime ally the United States, has yet to extend his official congratulations amid his rift with Prime Minister Netanyahu, while many Republicans in the country may be congratulating him in private. Now, after the electoral results were confirmed, the 65-year-old leader did make a trip to Jerusalem's Western Wall, a holy site in Judaism, in a traditional Thanksgiving visit. He said he was moved by the responsibility given to him by Israel and that he would form a new coalition government quickly, his party adding that that could come within 2 or 3 weeks. The world will also watch Netanyahu's next steps on the Palestinian peace process. A big question, as the prime minister in the final hours of his campaigning had promised not to see a Palestinian state, at least while he is in power. The U.S., together with the UN and the EU, have all urged Israel to seek a two-state solution. So certainly, Mark, that is a big question mark the world faces now.
Yes, a big question mark hanging over Israel and most of the Middle East these days. Well, thank you very much, Eunice. And we'll see you back at noon.
See you then.
And a good Thursday morning to you all as we kick things off in marathon. Now, there's been several non-Korean athletes who became naturalized Koreans, most of whom now play ice hockey. But how about marathon? Well, now Wilson Erupe, who won this year's Seoul International Marathon, has seen quite a bit of success here in Korea, including the course record he set during the 2012 Seoul International Marathon and his win in Gyeongju back in 2011. But now, after expressing his desire to be naturalized and represent Korea in the Olympics, he's going to find out if he can indeed be naturalized before leaving Korea on the 30th. And according to several marathon teams here in the nation, they're more than happy to have Erupe represent Korea as they hope to speed up the process in making it happen. Now, it's a known fact that when it comes to women's golf, it's the Koreans who dominate. But this season, it's a whole new level of domination. Now, first off, in the LPGA, there's been 6 LPGA Tour events so far where 5 Koreans have won the titles, with the other being Lydia Ko, who's a Korean native. But it's not just in the LPGA, as the latest European Tour was all won by either a Korean or a Korean native as well. And with the JTBC Founders Cup teeing off this week, the big question is, who's next? As the 2 super rookies in Kim Hyo-ju and Chang Ha-na still seek their first victory, while Lydia Ko looks to extend their lead in the world rankings, with Park In-bi not competing in the event. That's been exciting in the KBL playoffs so far, and it got even more exciting on Wednesday as the best-of-5 round-of-4 series tipped off with a repeat of last year's championship series between the Ulsan Mobis Phoebus and the Changwon LG Sakers. And the well-rested Mobis team getting a great jump start to the game as they outscore LG 29-18 in the first quarter before going into halftime with a comfortable 45-33 lead thanks to Yang Dong-gun's 18 points just in the first half alone. And despite LG trying to change up their game plan in the second half, Mobis never looks back, with Ricardo Ratliff putting up an insane 24 points, 19 rebounds, and 6 blocks as Mobis takes game 1 86-71. Now, wearing a green LA Dodgers hat for St. Patrick's Day, Lee Hyun-jin went into his second spring start against the Texas Rangers. Only he didn't get to face Chu Shin-soo since he was given the day off. Well, there's always next time, right? Well, either way, Lee Hyun-jin not as sharp as he was in his first start against the Padres as he pitches 3 innings while striking out 2 Rangers, but does give up 3 runs, one of which was unearned. Now, still early in the spring, though, as the hefty lefty will probably get a good 5 innings in his next spring start. And that's going to wrap it up for me. This has been SJ. Have a great rest of the day, and see you guys again for your sports needs.
Good morning. It seems like most of the rain clouds have moved away from the peninsula, and it's looking bright outside here in the capital, and the rest of the country will also have a good amount of sunshine throughout the day today. And yesterday's rain helped to bring things back to normal. Dryness got relief and the air quality improved as well, and it didn't affect the temperature readings much. In fact, upper provinces will highs getting up to above above or near 20 degrees, while the southern regions will have readings near the seasonal averages. So on that note, let's take a closer look at the readings for today. So while the high in Seoul will climb up to 18, Daegu, Gwangju, and Busan will all peak at 17 this afternoon. And as for the other regions, Jeju Island and Daejeon should see a high of 16 and 19, and Dokdo will top out at 12. Now, this relatively warm weather will continue till the end of the weekend, and the temperatures will go back to the norms next week. Well, that's all for the weather. Have a wonderful day.
Well, thank you very much, as always, Jian, for the weather. And those are the stories we have been following on this Thursday morning here in Seoul. For more of the latest, don't forget to check out our website and do download our smartphone application for when you're on the go. Have a wonderful rest of day or night, wherever you're watching us. Goodbye.